In a dark back alley, the sharp clang of metal echoes through the night. A dark-haired woman, dragging a baseball bat, wonders how much farther she still has to go. Going live on her phone, she cheerfully greets the 103 people watching. Hello, I'm Kwon-jia. A narrator explains that Kwon-jia is a 24-year-old YouTuber with a large following of 680,000 subscribers. Thumbnails of her past videos show her usual content, desserts, beauty tips, and light-hearted vlogs. Sitting at her laptop in despair, Kwon-jia sees her income and view counts all dropping. While streaming live, she steels her resolve, reminding herself not to mess up as she chases the dream of a gold play button. Suddenly, a clanking noise startles her, and her viewers begin asking about the strange sound. Nervously laughing, she awkwardly holds up the bat to the camera and explains what it is. Kwon-jia tells her viewers that the bat is only for self-defense, a gift from her eccentric friend Aaron. She dismisses their concerns about the neighborhood's dangers. Reading the worried comments, she trails off with a thoughtful little then thanks her fans for their concern, just as the sound of footsteps signals someone approaching from behind. Unaware of the person behind her, she turns away from the camera, boasting about how strong she is. Her audience laughs and she pouts, complaining that they're hurting her pride. To prove her strength, Kwon-jia sets her phone on a tripod and tells her viewers to wait for a quick demonstration. As she prepares to swing the bat, a silver-haired man suddenly appears behind her. Her frantic viewers try warning her in the chat, but with a powerful swing, Kwon-jia smashes the bat directly into the man's head, shocking her entire audience. He collapses, and she freezes in place as the chat explodes, realizing she's in deep trouble. One comment flashes across the screen: she's screwed. As Kwon-jia stares in horror, more comments pour in, when suddenly a scream of terror rips through the alley. Realizing this is their first meeting, a tearful Kwon-jia breaks down, crying, "I'm so sorry." The silver-haired man lies bruised with a bloody nose while she frantically promises to call 911, begging him to stay awake. Desperate, she pleads with him not to pass out, swearing she'll take full responsibility. Later, in a hospital bed, the bandaged man is identified as Guchan. Only 20 years old, Guchan works in construction to support his family. With a weary sigh, he thinks about his hard day's work and worries over mounting expenses, knowing labor alone won't be enough. Outside his room, Kwon-jia hesitates. Frustrated with his situation, Guchan decides to get back to work and starts pulling out the Ford drip. With determination in his eyes, he resolves to earn money. Just then, Kwon-jia rushes in, startling him by telling him to wait. She gently stops him from yanking the fork completely, warning that he'll hurt himself and explaining it would make a bloody mess. Insisting he rest, she tucks him back into bed and turns off the lights. He reluctantly agrees, realizing hospital bills are too expensive to risk. Awkwardly, she offers him a case of energy drinks, which he tells her to leave on the table. Lying in the dark, a bewildered Guchan wonders what's going on. Suddenly, Kwon-jia bows deeply over his bed, shouting another apology, making him yelp in surprise. Tearfully, she explains that while the doctor said it's just a mild concussion, she's still terribly sorry. Tiredly, Guchan accepts her apology, reassuring her it's fine, thinking it's nothing compared to his usual work injuries. On YouTube, the incident has already gone viral, with clips reaching hundreds of thousands of views. Back in the hospital, Kwon-jia apologizes again while showing Guchan the videos on her phone. She admits she has no right to ask forgiveness, but vows to get all re-uploads taken down, promising to protect him from harm. She tells him he can click on the videos to see the content. Realizing he might not understand, she quickly clarifies it's not public TV, but just her personal channel. Relieved, Guchan tells her not to worry, dismissing it as just a few pictures, though she looks stressed, knowing it's far worse. She corrects him, explaining that over 3,000 people watched live, but he just jokes about being famous on TV. Kwon-jia is left speechless at his nonchalance. Guchan says he's fine and tells her to get off the cold floor, but she stays frozen. He hesitantly asks about the hospital bill, privately balking at the cost of the Ford drip. She cheerfully says she already paid, leaving him surprised. Guchan sighs, telling her he's going back to work tomorrow anyway. His heart pounds when he notices her shocked reaction. Kwon-jia insists he should rest and not push himself. She bows deeply again, promising to cover all his medical bills. Flustered, Guchan stammers out his thanks. He tells her not to worry about the photos, but Kwon-jia trails off nervously. When he insists he doesn't need anything else, she assumes he wants her to leave quickly. Deciding she's being silly, Kwon-jia packs up to go so he can rest. As his heart races, Guchan secretly thinks about how beautiful she is, struggling for words. Kwon-jia hesitates, clutching her phone before finally walking away. A confused Guchan watches from his bed. As he peeks from under his blanket, she quietly places a business card on his nightstand, telling him to contact her if he needs anything. With one final apology, she leaves him alone with his thoughts. Now alone, Guchan picks up the card and reads her name aloud. Kwon-jia. He stares at it, her name echoing in his mind. Lying back in bed, he murmurs it again, figuring he'll probably never see her. Suddenly, he grabs his face, overwhelmed by frustration. Panicking, he wonders why his thoughts betray him, questioning his own inner voice. He scolds himself for daydreaming about a girl, reminding himself of his responsibilities and how fast time is slipping by. With a resigned sigh, he lowers his hands, the blush still lingering on his cheeks. The narrator explains that Guchan, who was only focused on earning money, remained oblivious to the world changing around him. As he walks through the city, Kwon is suddenly overcome with rage, questioning whether the people around him have gone insane. He realizes a crowd is chasing him, calling him the victim from the YouTuber incident, and wonders why. The crowd swarms him, shouting his nickname Tukbake and praising his looks as he comes to understand the true influence of a YouTuber. Overwhelmed by endless photo requests, a stressed Guchan wonders what a tubble even is and why this is happening. Desperately, he flees on a moped, pleading with the chasing crowd to just leave him alone. The scene then shifts to the scaffolding of a construction site at dusk. Panting and wiping sweat from his brow, Guchan finally arrives at the site. Just as he sighs in relief, thinking he has escaped, a loud voice bellows his name, Kwon. His coworker, Kim Ong-chu, thrusts a phone in his face, demanding to know if the person in the viral video is him. Mr. Kim excitedly confirms, calling him Hyun-jong, the Tukbake guy, leaving Guchan utterly stunned. His coworker insists he knew it was him ever since hearing about the accident, pointing out Kwon's swollen eyes as proof. Mr. Kim exclaims he's now famous online, while Guchan, completely bewildered, can only ask what is happening. His coworker shows him the viral post filled with comments about his looks, and Guchan, baffled, wonders how Mr. Kim even found out. When his coworker reveals it was on the news, Guchan finally connects the dots. Tukbake refers to his busted skull. A familiar voice suddenly calls out, "Schnai," and Guchan freezes. Slowly turning, he thinks the voice sounds incredibly familiar. To his disbelief, he sees Kwon-jia approaching, calling him by his nickname, Cheney. Smiling warmly, Kwon-jia appears before him, carrying a massive fruit basket. She asks about his condition, leaving his stunned coworkers gawking. Surrounded by his fellow construction workers, Kwon watches her draw near, wondering what on earth is happening. His coworkers whisper about the young lady, revealing that Mr. Kim, the culprit behind the rumors, had spread the word. The old men swoon over Guchan's bride, excitedly gushing that Mr. Kim told them he was getting married soon. Flustered, Guchan wonders about the sudden talk of marriage and celebrity debuts, blaming it all on Mr. Kim's gossip. He stares at Kwon-jia, struggling to understand why she's even there. He wonders how someone like her could have gotten onto the site, while his coworkers daydream about themselves as tiny cheerleaders perched on his shoulders. They admire how much his Chinese bride resembles a celebrity, while Guchan remains silently stunned. Kwon-jia expresses her concern, telling him he shouldn't push himself by rushing straight to work. She presents the fruit basket, happily congratulating him on being discharged from the hospital. A blushing Guchan is taken aback when she adds that she thinks it's cool he works at a construction site. Her words make Kwon's heart pound inside his chest. As his tiny coworkers cheer that she called him cool, Kwon realizes he can no longer put any distance between them. Then, in a bold move, Kwon-jia puts on Kwon's hard hat. She adjusts it, her eyes shining with a mix of surprise and determination. Annoyed by the attention, Guchan insists they need to step outside first. Agreeing it's too dangerous, Kwon-jia grabs his arm and leads him away from the construction area. As Kwon drags her out, his coworkers cheer for the handsome couple, making him shout that she isn't his wife. Once outside, he apologizes for his mischievous coworkers, and she nervously agrees to ignore them. The scene shifts, showing the city skyline glowing at dusk. Kwon-jia thanks him for lending her the hard hat, but he replies that her safety is what matters most. Kwon hesitates, struggling to find the right words. He asks why she came, thinking their business had already ended yesterday, which leaves her speechless. After Guchan presses her again, a flustered Kwon-jia stammers, trying to explain, then suddenly bows, apologizing once more as she shows him her phone flooded with negative comments about the incident. She explains that since Cheney is trending, the public demands a quick and accurate response to the scandal. Kwon-jia admits that despite her apology post, public opinion remains in an uproar. As she explains the story is all over the news, Guchan wonders why it even matters if he, the victim, is fine. A stressed Kwon-jia nervously thanks him for being understanding. She trails off, unable to look at him, weighing her next words. Knowing how shameless it sounds, she nervously begins asking for a huge favor. A confused Guchan simply asks what she wants. Panicking inside, Kwon-jia wonders how she can possibly ask him to make a public statement. Kwon's face stays stern and unreadable. She lays out the burden, noting that he got hurt, missed work, and now has to waste time because of her. Bowing deeply, she vows to repay his kindness for the rest of her life. She passionately promises to repay him 100-fold so that he'll never regret helping her. Guchan listens silently to her desperate pledge. During a live broadcast, Kwon-jia introduces herself, followed by a reluctant Guchan, who introduces himself with his new online nickname. Abruptly declaring he's fine, Kwon makes Kwon-jia remind him he can stop bowing to the camera now. Sitting upright, she officially begins the broadcast, explaining she's live to address the issue. She announces that Guchan, the victim, has agreed to join her to personally clarify the situation. Guchan confirms he's fine, saying his injuries were minor and that he is fully recovered. He explains they already resolved everything that day and is confused about why the incident escalated, though he admits it was unusual. Reading the positive live comments, Kwon asks if the messages are really in real time. Feeling the atmosphere improve, he lets out a quiet sigh of relief, thinking the ordeal is finally ending. But suddenly, Kwon-jia leans against him, resting her head on his shoulder. Guchan freezes in surprise, unsure how to react to her sudden closeness. Nervous about her first ever YouTube live, Kwon-jia is too terrified to even glance at the chat. She worries about being criticized and dragging Kwon into further trouble. Shaking, she laments that she never wanted to become known through such a scandal. A hand gently covers hers, offering comfort. "Ah," Guchan says softly, noticing how nervous she is. He carefully holds her hand, trying to reassure her. Guchan explains that his mom used to calm his nerves by holding his wrist, so he hoped it might work for her as well. Confused by his own actions, Kwon wonders why he's suddenly acting this way. Then, with a moment of clarity, he feels he understands his impulse. Yet far from calm, A blushing Kwon-jia's heart races wildly, convinced his gesture is having the exact opposite effect. She panics inwardly, realizing that his touch only makes her even more nervous. Guchan notices his attempt didn't work, so he decides to let her calm down on her own. The scene shifts to a quiet city street at night as a car drives off. Inside, Kwon-jia drives silently while Guchan sits quietly beside her. Finally, she breaks the silence, prompting him to turn and ask what's on her mind. Kwon-jia admits that just asking for a statement was shameless and that his agreement alone would have been enough. She confesses her surprise that he suggested a live stream, knowing it would be a heavy burden for someone outside her industry. Guchan explains he thought showing people he was fine would work better than a written statement. He pauses, collecting his thoughts before going on. Internally, he admits her overwhelming guilt was a burden. A comical flashback shows her exaggeratedly begging him to kill her, and he concludes that he only wanted to settle things to avoid more problems. Glancing at him, Kwon-jia finds his simple, straightforward way of thinking fascinating. She muses that he seems to have no knowledge of, or interest in, her field at all. When Guchan lets out a huge yawn, she wonders if his relaxed nature is a kind of talent, though it still leaves her uneasy. Flustered, she tries to brush off the awkward ending of the live stream by asking if he thinks it wrapped up well. Continuing, she says the most surprising thing is her eyes suddenly widen in realization. Staring at the unsuspecting Guchan, she wonders if this whole situation could actually be an opportunity for her. Guchan then asks to be dropped off, and a flustered Kwon-jia agrees to pull over. After parking, both step out of the car and stand in front of a building. Kwon-jia confirms that the malicious comments have disappeared, and Guchan gratefully explains that public opinion has died down thanks to her. He adds that their explanation broadcast has already begun circulating online. A chibi Guchan appears, looking confused as a positive online comment pops into a thought bubble. Suddenly mortified, Kwon-jia covers her blushing face, whispering, "Oh my god." Guchan, confused by her sudden reaction, assumes she must be cold since her clothes are thin. Believing that's the case, he suggests they head inside while she still stands flustered. On the street, Kwon-jia calls out his nickname, Chani. Looking at him earnestly, she confesses she's truly relieved that he seems fine. She clarifies that while the statement was part of it, it wasn't the only reason she came. She admits her real desire to check on him was much stronger, leaving Guchan blushing and panicked as he wonders if he's only hearing what he wants. Trailing off, she glances at the building. A beet-red Guchan tells her he's glad, and a shy Kwon-jia thanks him. An awkward silence lingers between them. Guchan finally says he's heading inside to escape the cold, leading to a flurry of awkward goodbyes. With one last glance back, he turns and walks up the stairs to his building. Climbing the steps, he reflects on his hectic day full of filming. He thinks it was lucky his schedule got adjusted, sarcastically crediting his silly coworkers. When his phone vibrates, he wonders if he might have caused her more trouble. Seeing who's calling, he frowns, questioning why his mother would call so late before answering. The scene cuts back to Kwon-jia's car parked on the street. Exhausted, she leans against the steering wheel, sighing that she doesn't even know how the day slipped away. She worries she might have overdone things, fretting that she should have offered her contact info again, assuming he tossed the first one aside. Frustrated, she yells internally, wondering why it bothers her so much, telling herself to snap out of it. Suddenly, a figure's legs appear beside her car. She looks up, confused, only for a man to collapse onto her hood. Another man rushes up, desperately pounding on her window. Through tears, he begs for her help, crying that his brother has collapsed. An ambulance races toward the glowing red emergency center sign. At the reception desk, a frantic Guchan demands to know what's happening. Behind him, a shocked Kwon-jia watches, her voice trembling as she calls his name. Guchan turns slightly, his face drenched in sweat, his expression grim. Kwon-jia gently places her hand over his on the counter, offering quiet support. With genuine concern, Kwon-jia tries to comfort him, telling him not to worry. He remains grave and silent as her hand covers his. A voice calls out, "Hyun." The scene cuts to Hyun, Guchan's twin sister, sitting in a hospital bed with her arm in a sling. An exhausted, panicked Guchan looms over her bed. A flashback shows a group of young, silver-haired boys frantically fussing over their sister, asking what happened, if she was okay. Overwhelmed, the young Hyun asks where their mom and his aunt are and why someone named Puna collapsed too. As the boys worry about a possible head injury, Hanin thinks to herself that everything is happening at once. Back in the present, a tense Guchan grabs his sister's face, demanding answers. He stares at her with a grim, worried look, sweat beading on his temple. Squishing her cheeks, he demands to know what happened, and she stammers out the truth. The scene flashes back to a playground outside a large apartment building. A young Hain falls while playing, other children crying out for help. The narration explains she simply fell and broke her arm at the playground. Lying on the ground, she winces in pain, thinking of how badly it hurts. But more than the pain, she worried about the hospital bill, holding it in until she collapsed. Crying now, she apologizes to her brother for the cost. Guchan holds his crying sister, his expression softening as he listens to her apology. Gently, he calls her name, Hina. Pulling back to look at her, Guchan reassures her that he has plenty of money and that his absence was only because of work, not finances. When she asks if it's okay to stay in the hospital, he insists she can stay as long as needed. Wiping her tears, he tells her to always tell him or their mom right away if she's ever sick or hurt again. She tearfully nods. Apologizing once more, she's met with his reassuring smile as he tells her there's no need. Quietly, Guchan steps out of the hospital room. Leaning against the hallway wall, he lets out a long, weary sigh. Relieved that his sister is safe, Guchan slumps to the floor outside her room, completely drained. As he sits exhausted on the floor, Kwon-jia suddenly appears, startling him when she realizes she's found him. Kwon-jia apologetically explains that she was only checking on his sister, while Guchan internally panics over the embarrassing situation. Springing to his feet in a fluster, Kwon hurriedly tells her that his sister is doing fine. Startled by his abrupt movement, Kwon-jia lets out a small "ah." Guchan turns slightly away, his expression unreadable as he wonders what to do. Nervously, Kwon-jia holds out a piece of paper for him to see. His eyes widen in shock as he stares at the document. Stunned, he reads the hospital bill of 1.8 million, thinking the cost for just 3 nights is insane. In his head, he rehearses saying that she doesn't need to pay, that he'll handle it himself. Looking at the bill with sweat on his face, he admits to himself that this is exactly what he planned to say. Still processing the enormous amount, he glances up from the bill. Kwon-jia now stands before him, offering 2 cups of coffee. She insists she feels guilty and must take responsibility for his sister as well, but he quickly tries to dismiss her guilt. She explains that the high bill was because a single room was the only option, yet he still looks troubled. She presses on, saying she has to take responsibility since he missed 2 days of work because of her, a point that makes him realize how much of a financial hit it really is. He lowers his gaze to the coffee she's offering. Kindly, Kwon-jia tells him to drink something warm and take care after such a stressful day. They talk things through. He confirms that his sister's pneumonia isn't serious and that her fracture is just a common childhood injury. Looking genuinely relieved, Kwon-jia says she's so glad it wasn't anything worse. A chibi Kwon-jia beams as Guchan agrees, also relieved, though still holding the bill and coffee in his hands. Wania asks if he's heading out, offering to walk him. Just then, Guchan's younger twin brother Chan appears with a band-aid on his cheek. Both Guchan and Kwon-jia freeze as the younger brother stares at them. Suddenly, Chan bursts out with excitement, shouting that his brother has a girlfriend, while a flustered Guchan vehemently denies it. But Chan keeps teasing, yelling that Guchan is getting married now, leaving their sister Hain, watching from her room, completely confused. When Chan asks if his brother really has a girlfriend, a smitten Haynes stares with heart-shaped lips. Her eyes then widen in recognition, as a star-struck thought bubble reveals she knows who Kwon-jia is. Flustered, Kwon-jia greets them, while Chan shouts her name in awe and Gu-chan hides, horrified, from behind her. Once Kwon-jia confirms her identity, Han looks amazed, while Gu-chan internally panics, wondering if this is some kind of hidden camera show, realizing even his sister knows her. Hae-shin directly asks Kwon-jia if she's really his brother's girlfriend. Caught off guard, a blushing Kwon-jia stammers, unsure how to reply. Gu-chan, red-faced, is at a total loss for words. From inside the hospital room, a child's voice calls out, shouting that sister is the best. Hain begs Kwon-jia to visit again, while Gu-chan offers to let her talk to someone named Biker next time. Back inside, Gu-chan explains to his amazed siblings that he and Kwon-jia had filmed together a long time ago. Chan celebrates, thrilled at the thought of meeting Biker Bro, while Hain confides in Kwon-jia about her kindergarten crush. Han declares his undying respect for Kwon-jia, who thanks him warmly, while Gu-chan watches with a faint, amused smirk. The three of them quickly grow close, as Kwon-jia promises she'll listen to Hain's confession story once she starts elementary school. After some time, a tired Chan falls asleep on the bed, while Hain rests peacefully with her bunny. Kwon softly sighs his brother's name as he gently covers Chan with a blanket, then carefully tucks in his sleeping sister. Gu-chan stands watch over his siblings as they sleep. Kwon-jia sits quietly, observing the peaceful scene. Gu-chan glances at a calendar on the wall, lost in a moment of quiet reflection. A heavy silence settles between him and Kwon-jia in the dimly lit hospital room. Gu-chan remains seated, thoughtful, with sweat rolling down his face as he thinks about the long day. He suggests she head home, but she insists she's fine and will wait for their mom. Their mom, shaken, went home to grab clothes, and she told her to rest first. Gu-chan apologizes for the shabby room, but Kwon-jia reassures him it's perfectly warm. With sincere gratitude, she thanks him for everything. Kwon apologizes again, saying he burdened her with the hospital trip, the costs, and stealing her time when he had only asked for a ride. He also thanks her for playing with the kids, adding that his sister Hain, being such a big fan, was incredibly happy. Looking at her seriously, he vows that he'll repay the favor no matter what. Kwon-jia offers her own help in return for any future trouble, whether connected to their past incident or not. Leaning closer, she tells him there's something she wants to ask, piquing Gu-chan's curiosity. With determined eyes, Kwon-jia prepares herself, then boldly asks if he would do a couple's YouTube channel with her. Stunned, he reels in shock as she leans closer, clarifying that it would be just like today and nothing to overthink. Looking down at him nervously, Kwon-jia asks if his answer is no. Pinned to the couch, Gu-chan bluntly rejects her offer, saying he doesn't want to. Her shocked mind echoes with his refusal. Kwon adds that the reason should be obvious. He glances toward his sleeping siblings, telling her she's already seeing why. He gestures toward the children, making it clear they are his priority. Touching his chin thoughtfully, Gu-chan explains further. He says he simply can't take on such an unstable job. Kwon-jia correctly guesses that by unstable he means the income, and he confirms it. Then, in a bold move, Kwon-jia offers him a 10-0 profit split. She clarifies that he would get the 10, leaving Gu-chan completely stunned and silent. Sweetening the deal, she promises that generous split will apply to all their channel's videos. She lays out her conditions: 1 filming session a week, full creative control for him, and she'll handle the rest. Gu-chan listens carefully as she swears she'll never break her word. Though it almost seems he's convinced, Kwon once again refuses, insisting he wasn't tempted at all. Confused, Kwon-jia asks why not. He explains that it isn't about money, leaving her to wonder what his true reason might be. With a weary smile, Gu-chan finally reveals his condition. The channel has to earn at least as much as his delivery job. Kwon-jia sits quietly, her back facing the viewer, listening as he voices his concerns. Sweat runs down his tired face as he looks at her, his responsibilities weighing heavily. Suddenly, Kwon-jia stands, her face shadowed, and firmly tells him to stand up, leaving him to wonder what she's about to do. She shows her phone, revealing a savings account balance of over 652 million. Guchan's eyes widen in disbelief as she explains that this is just her YouTube income from last year, not even counting other sponsorships. Stunned, he struggles to process the enormous figure, realizing it's in the hundreds of millions and would take endless days of hard labor to earn. Even with the proof before him, he argues that the industry is unstable, warning that many dreamers ultimately fail. He continues, explaining that success can be fleeting, with luck being one of the most crucial factors in the competitive content creation world. Kwon-jia passionately appeals to him, insisting she truly is lucky, even if she's been in a small slump recently. Leaning in closer, she reminds him of the public's wild reaction to the two of them together, while he considers the massive potential income from a 10-0 split. Sparkling with determination, she asks if he isn't at least a little curious about what their combined chemistry and luck could bring. Grabbing his hand, she insists they could grow even bigger together, and he begins to think this might actually be an amazing opportunity. Clasping her hand, she passionately pitches their potential, whispering to herself that this chance is meant for both of them. A flustered Guchan, drawn in chibi style and surrounded by owls, is left utterly bewildered by her intense proposal. After a brief moment of shock, Kwon eagerly accepts, formally introducing himself along with his desire to make money, and they shake on the deal. The scene shifts to a new location, a tiny, rundown room with a cracked window patched by tape. Lying shirtless in bed, Guchan is surprised at how quickly Kwon-jia sent over the draft contract. He scrolls through the exclusive joint channel agreement on his phone, musing that life is good if deals can be signed right from bed. But his relaxed expression fades into a serious, contemplative look as he reviews the details. Resting his phone against his lips, he decides to go through the terms one more time. The more he reads, the more it feels like a reverse slave contract that's simply too good to be true. He questions how he could possibly make such money from just a few videos, concluding that it would all come from her fame. Slamming his phone onto the bed in frustration, he yells, wondering why she would even offer him such a generous deal. The view widens to show his tiny room, number 3003, as a neighbor from 3004 shouts at him to quiet down. Kwon yells back, while another unseen resident complains about the psycho in 3004. A fist bangs against the wall as yet another neighbor demands silence. Enraged, Guchan sits up, revealing a shockingly muscular physique as he furiously yells back, then slumps onto his bed in the cramped gashawon. He laments that while he can tolerate the bad facilities, the awful neighbors are unbearable. Admitting that the cheap rent has its reasons, he resigns himself to the situation before refocusing on the contract. Sitting up, he calmly reviews the time commitments for meetings and live streams, finding them reasonable. Leaping to his feet, he suddenly feels energized when realizing the deal includes a new place to live. Ecstatic, he accepts his good fortune. On the phone with Kwon-jia, Kwon confirms his name and asks about the room and board included in the contract. The scene transitions to a modern apartment building with a beautiful rooftop garden. Dressed in a new outfit, a tense Kwon waits as a voice calls his name. Kwon-jia opens the door to a luxurious apartment, smiling warmly as she welcomes him in. Her knowing smile makes him blush furiously. Completely flustered, Kwon stands frozen at the doorway, literally encased in a block of ice from shock, as she gestures for him to step inside.